I'm your host, Dino Watt, and get ready to be inspired as you learn exactly how to own your role. And welcome everybody once again to the Own Your Role podcast. I'm your host, Dino Watt. Excited for another great episode where we get to dive into what does it really mean to own your role in your business and in your life. And today I have Wally Bressler on with us, who is going to share with us how he helps you make more money through sales. Now, if any of you have ever seen me on stage or if you had me coach for you, I always come up with this point that in every business, there's actually only two positions. There are a lot of different roles. There are a lot of different tasks that need to be done, but there's only two positions, either sales or sales support. That's it. So when I read Wally's bio and understood what he's doing, I was really excited to bring him on the show because I want everybody to understand the power and importance and joy, in my opinion, of sales. I think sales is really a great opportunity to share enthusiasm for something that you have with somebody else, whether that be real estate, whether that be braces, whether that be cars, it doesn't matter. When you get to share that joy and enthusiasm and exchange that with somebody else, that's what sales is. So excited to dive in today. Again, thank you everybody for watching the show and listening to the podcast. Please make sure you share it with your friends and colleagues and make sure you subscribe to the show and let us know how you think we're doing. That being said, welcome to the show, Wally.
Pleasure to be here, my man. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm excited to see you, and your enthusiasm is infectious. We had a little pre-call, and
we had fun.
I like people with energy. I like people with good energy. So that's great.
Likewise, somebody should create a podcast where the whole podcast is just what happens before the podcast.
Right, exactly.
All the banter and the relaxed conversation, and you
get to see what they used to call it, like the DVD, like behind the scenes,
Yeah, exactly, right behind the scenes, just all the
gag reel.
Yeah, literally, right.
That's true.
Thanks for having me here, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, tell us first of all where you're calling in from.
Yep. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I grew up in the Northeast, about 45 miles north of Boston, but I've been in Texas, McKinney, Texas, north of Dallas, for about 16 years. Actually, 16 years as of next week.
Nice. Very good.
Yep.
And tell us your story. I always love stories. I always like starting with the stories first. I think that's the thing that connects all of us. So tell us your story and then get to where you are and what you're doing now.
How far back you want me to go?
You were born a poor man where?
I was in Navin Johnson. I was born a poor black child.
That's right.
From the jerk. Yeah,
yep.
It's funny. I was raised by wolves in a wood thatched hut. Yeah. So, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and my parents moved to New Hampshire shortly thereafter. And I preface my comments this way all the time. My parents were good people, they just weren't good parents. And they weren't good parents because their parents weren't good parents, and if you're buying, what they're selling with epigenetics, you realize that trauma is passed down from generations, and there's generational trauma, and usually it's up to somebody in one generation to go ahead and put a stop to it. So I believe that's rested on me. That being said, Dino, are you Italian by any chance or anything like that?
Greek.
Okay, so not that far. Still lots of yelling.
Yeah.
Still lots of yelling. Still lots of.
I'm Greek Scottish, so we always say we're a bunch of yelling with our hands drunks. That's what my dad said.
That makes sense. But so then you're Mediterranean. We're going to call it that, right? So when you're an Italian family, like there's three means of communication: you get yelled at, you get hit, and you get food. You know what I'm saying? That's really, those are the three things, right? And you get hit with whatever's closest, and I'm chuckling now, but it was pretty crappy, but my dad's mom was emotionally and physically abusive. My mom's dad, he was from Italy himself, Calabria, and Italians, as much as it's a romance language, aren't great at really affirming people.
Yeah.
Anyways, what I'm saying? So when I was 3, 4, and 5 years old, I'd be punished for things I didn't do wrong, and one of the big punishments was being sent to bed without dinner, and or lunch or whatever. And so that really sparked a big fear of being hungry. I had a binge eating disorder for 40 plus years. My weight got to 500 pounds at once. And so, I was addicted to food for a very, very long time. Still a fight, what I'm saying? So when I was 10, I was sexually abused by an extended relative. When I was 11, I started looking at pornography. I was looking at my dad's adult magazines. And then I started having sex when I was 12. And I was basically bullied for the entire time between the ages of as early as I can remember, all the way to probably, 14 years old. So by the time I was 14, low self-esteem, low self-worth, lots of anxiety, lots of depression, didn't believe in who I was, and just, I was not feeling like a good person. And then the switch flipped, and I went from the person who was hurt to the person who did the hurting. And so it's interesting, and I'm going to kind of draw some parallels here. So if you had watched me from, let's say, age 15 on, I lettered in football and track in high school. I was a New Hampshire Defensive Player of the Year. I graduated like top 18% of my class. I went to the number 13 liberal arts college in the country. I lettered 4 years in football there. I lettered in track. I was making, I don't know, $100,000 a year by the time I was about 28 back in
Wow.
1997, which is good money, right? So
Yeah, sure.
got married, had 4 kids. I mean, things were great. Left, became a real estate agent when I was 30, sold 72 houses my first 14 months in the business, helped build a great Coldwell Banker office. Well, that's great. But what's happening on the inside is I'm addicted to food. I'm addicted to sex. I cheated on my wife 4 times, blown about $5 million in my lifetime. Watch pornography several times a day. And then, in early 2000s, I was doing some real estate investing with somebody, and they lied on $15 million worth of mortgages. You know, I don't think he was, and I know I wasn't trying to steal money, but the fact of the matter is what happened is banks lost money, had to accept responsibility for being there for the things that I said and did, irrespective of whether or not I was trying to. I wasn't being a good steward. So I spent 366 days in federal prison
Wow.
for mail fraud, and divorced, and my kids all had a tough time. And then, I got out of prison, wanted to start my life over, really hadn't worked on all those challenges and addictions that I had. And then I met somebody a few months after I got out, and so badly wanted to be loved, really wanted to try and improve on the marriage that I had, really didn't have great boundaries and just did not see the red flags coming at all. And we were together for 4.5 years, engaged for about a year. And I couldn't get her to move down here to Texas from the state she lived in. And I said, I just can't do this anymore. And I broke up with her. And 3 days later, I found out she had lied to me about everything. And she was actually married the entire time we were together.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And so for me, that was like the last bad decision. And, effectively at that time, 30 plus years of bad decisions. And so a month later, I decided I was going to take my own life.
Mm.
And, were it not for a very, brief but impactful conversation with God, I probably would not be here today. And I was reminded then of what it was like when my dad died when I was 23. And even though I didn't have a great relationship with my parents, it was pretty sucky when he died. I'm saying? He
Mhm.
was 49, I was 23, my sister was 19, I was 17. And so that came back to me. And then I decided that I was not gonna give up, but long journey, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
so
it's so interesting because you don't know this. My mission, my vision in life is to reverse the direction of divorce, addiction, and suicide amongst business owners and their team members. And obviously you check off all three boxes, right? And I think all of us look at our lives, and it's so much, in some ways, I think it's probably a positive thing, but maybe some people can say it's negative, is we can see so many similarities through the pain and through the challenges that we've been through. It might not be exactly the same, but there are so many similarities that you can look at and go, okay, well, we're a lot alike in that place. And I'm curious for that moment of this has got to change moment. Like when that happened to you, you said I had a very powerful conversation with God. What was that next day like?
it was pretty horrible because I spent pretty much the whole day in bed.
Mm,
I mean, there's a thing, I don't know if you heard this before. There's a thing as a therapy hangover. Like when you have conversations with therapists and counselors, and
mhm.
you let a lot of emotions out, you're literally fried the next day. I mean, your body, right? Yeah,
You're
you're just like,
empty. Yeah.
yeah, like even though, yeah, you're like inside. I spent the whole day in bed, but I just kept on looking up at the ceiling and saying, I can't, I cannot live with the pain anymore. Like as humans, we are uber resilient, and
Yes.
we get used to our own dysfunction all the time. We'll make adjustments in our life and who we are, and we'll walk around in physical pain for years until we can't stand it anymore, And so I did that for 4 decades pretty much. But I laid in bed and I'm like, can you just please? I'm like, and so I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. I was literally at rock bottom. You know what I'm saying? Literally, and when you hit rock bottom and you can bounce, or you can crawl along, or you can die. You know what I'm saying? And so I chose to bounce, and I started looking. I found a psychiatrist and a nutritionist, and they both fired me because they didn't think I was serious about it. And so and that took, and then probably April or March of the next year, I was like, I was still in rough shape. I still needed really bad help, and so I did for the first time I put myself on a wait list for something. I'm not a wait list guy. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, if we didn't have reservations at a restaurant, I don't wait in line. If we don't have tickets for something, I'm not, I'm like, I'm not that guy. I don't want to wait in line if I have tickets. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm just that guy. You know, I've been
Yeah.
impatient. So I'm like, you know what? Something told me just, so I put myself on the wait list. And then a month later, they're like, hey, this lady's available. And I'm like, I need somebody who is a food, like an eating disorder specialist, an addiction specialist. And so I met Kelly, and, we still work together, and I'll be working with her as of the end of July for 3 years. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? And
Nice.
we all need coaches. We all need mentors. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? She saved my life. And now she's, helping me with some other stuff. But, I finally found somebody, and I think, when they say, and you've heard this before, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Of course.
And so I was ready, and she heard, she met me where I needed to be met. And so I saw her twice a week for probably 2 years straight.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that with
Yeah,
us. That's an amazing backstory. And it also gives you an ability to probably have a lot of empathy for whatever people are struggling with. And I want to probably circle around to this later on about how the sales reluctance you talk about, the reflection of what that is inside themselves from their past trauma, concerns, stuff like that.
Right on.
Before we get to that, though, I want to talk about how you've obviously created this lifestyle now and business, with the reflection of, I'm always so interested in people's own journey around personal development, around reaching out, like you said, getting mentors, getting help, reading books, whatever. What for you was the most impactful words, book, event, moment that you can remember that you're like, okay, this is gonna either change everything or I'm never gonna get it?
So great question. It's interesting. And I've kind of learned this along the way. I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan.
Yeah.
I've gone a Day with Destiny. I went to UPW twice, walked on Coles twice. I went to his leadership program twice. I went to Success 99. I've been to truckloads. I saw Zig Ziglar speak. I saw Brian Tracy speak. I mean, I've been a big, I used to walk to work when I was in Boston. I would walk from Charlestown to work downtown financial districts about 30, 35 minutes. And I would listen to Over the Top of Zig Ziglar, or See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar, right?
Yeah.
Cassettes, Robert H. Schiller. So I just literally, right. I'm aging myself. I'm dating myself here. Don't let the brown hair fool you. Okay. So, anyway, so all kinds I've learned so much, you know what I'm saying? And I've gone to seminars and webinars and trained and things like that. And I just, like, so many things impacted me, but they didn't impact me. Like, I wasn't able to let them in.
Yep.
And so I'm going to answer your question, but this is kind of a long way there. I'm going to tell another story if that's okay.
Yeah. But I want you to know that I love this because I think there are a lot of people who can relate to what you just said, which is, I've done all this stuff, and it's still not hitting.
And I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah.
And I realize it from my own son, actually, not even from me, but from my own son. And a lot of people, I talk to people, your coach, we talk to people all the time. I read the books, I've done the training, and some people get like PhDs in training. They go to training all day long. Totally. Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? Right.
Yeah.
And here I am, not only am I going to the training, but I'm helping people become millionaires in real estate.
Yeah.
I'm literally fixing their lives and their marriages and all, helping them become millionaires. And I can't fix my own crap. By the way, you can't fix your own stuff, just so you know, you can't be your own.
That's right. Doesn't work.
People don't realize that. Frustrating, but still. So anyway, I'm trying to think here. 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So when I started this business, I've got 4 kids. I've got a 23-year-old daughter, a 21-year-old daughter, a 19-year-old son, a 16-year-old daughter. So about 3 or 4 years ago, I asked my son, Alex, I said, hey, why don't you come work with me? And he's like, yeah, great. I wanted him to come work with me, teach him some skills and stuff like that. And he was kind of not knowing what he wanted to do. And so I sat him down there. I bought a table, I bought a chair for him, got a computer, and sat him down. I gave him a piece of paper and a pencil. I said, hey, I want you to write down 10 things you want to accomplish in your life. And he's like, okay. And he had talked about wanting to go to Peter Luger's to get a steak. He wants a house in New Hampshire in the middle of nowhere where it's cool because that's where we're from. I mean, he had mentioned all kinds of stuff that he wanted. And he sat there for almost an hour and he couldn't come up with one thing. I'm like, ow. Like, and we after I told him, yeah. And I'm like, that's really weird. Like, why could he not get that? No. So I was like, yeah, that's really weird. And so there's what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for here? imposter syndrome specialist that I know from England, super, super nice lady, Tara Halliday. And so, I called her. I said, hey, help me understand this. I said, how, because I understand imposter syndrome. Like I understand everything we were talking about, but like, how is it that, somebody can do well, but, they're not responsive to what's what we're looking for here, to success and to all the good things that are happening. And so we talked for a while. And basically what we come up with was this, is that when you have something that was traumatic or challenging in your life when you were a kid, and that it basically triggered that fight or flight instinct, whether it was fight or flight, what happens is that even though it starts as a little seedling, it grows into this giant sequoia tree as you get older, because you continually reinforce running away from the pain, running away from the fear, fighting. Your brain is so occupied with doing what it needs to do to protect you that it doesn't allow you to start seeing the things you need to see for good things to happen. Either you don't believe it's available for you, that it can't happen for you, or you're just so focused on something else that doesn't penetrate. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right. So and here's the thing, like, to give you an example here, when I found out I was going to prison, I was also getting divorced from my now ex-wife, no shocker. So we made a decision to take the kids to a place where we knew they would never go again, so they could never associate that memory. And we said, Mom and Dad are getting divorced and Dad's going to prison. You can imagine being away from your kids for a year and all that stuff happening, how bad it can screw your kids up. And it affected all of them. They've all been through or in counseling. But my son took it especially hard, and he actually ended up trying to kill himself when he was 14 or 15. Fortunately, he didn't know that Tylenol won't kill you. So, but he had a hard time, but the whole thing is that when we are so consumed with running away from the pain, from trying to make the pain go away, from staying stuck in low self-worth, low self-esteem, need for approval, there's no space for us to believe that good things can happen, and that all this stuff that's happening for other people can happen for us. So I can read a whole book. I can go, hey, Simon Sinek, great book, Find Your Why.
Right.
I can't find my why. I can't, like, people are, and that's what happens is we got to make space in our brain. We got to clear out some of that programming and some of that crap to make room for the good stuff, to make room for the belief, to make room for the fact that some good things can happen for us. And so that's why I can go to a Tony Robbins event, feel really good when I go there, take 8 pages of notes, and really, come back, put my calendar together, put my goals together, set my notebook out for the next day, all my stuff, and come sit down. On the first day is great. The second day is like, I'm tired, I'll just do it later. Third day is like, what, as long as I get it done before bed, I'm good. Fourth day is like, what, weekend's coming, I'll just do the weekend. All right, on Monday. And the next thing you know, and that's just, Rick Carson calls it your gremlin, right?
Yeah.
It's your gremlin, right? That little whoever inside you that's like, oh,